afternoon, everyone. Lovely to have you all here and joining us today. I'm Deborah Hughes, Assistant Director of the Publicity and Publications at DAS, and I will be your host alongside Head of DAS International, Annaberta Oles. Thank you for attending today's webinar, Spotlight on Specialist Tutoring, Transitioning to Confidently from Primary to Secondary Maths. So our speakers today are lead educational therapist and senior specialist teacher, Ms Aisha Abdullah, and senior specialist teacher, Ms Shilpa Madan. Before we start the webinar, a bit of housekeeping. Your experience of this webinar will be as good as your internet connection and the device that you are using. So if you're experiencing any technical problems, you may leave the webinar and come back. You have control over your volume and you can adjust it on your device. If you have any questions for our presenters, please click on the Q&A icon at the bottom of the Zoom window and type in your questions there, or you could use the chat function. We'll be collecting all your questions and hope to provide you answers either at the end of this presentation, where we have about 15 minutes to do so. Otherwise, we'll post the questions in the DAS International website. So let's get started. I'd like to introduce you to Ms Annaberta Oles, the head of DAS International. Anna, over to you.
Hi everyone. Hi, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. And a very warm welcome to all of you, parents, teachers, allied educators that are here today. I am your host, Annaberta Oles, head of DAS International for the last 10 years now. And this is, by the way, our 10th anniversary year starting in May. So congratulations to DAS International. And along with my co-host, whom you just met, Deborah Hughes, who is our Assistant Director, Publicity and Publications. We have Ms Aisha Abdullah, and we also have Ms Shilpa. And we bring you the DAS International 10th Anniversary Webinar Series. Just a quick background on how the Spotlight Teacher webinar has actually come about, just for a background. I interact a lot with parents over the years, with the families, schools, and so I thought, what a better way, than to bring the teachers over to all of you, so that you can get to know them. And our teachers have quietly been working steadfast, supporting our students really, with learning differences, not just dyslexia, but with ADHD, dyscalculia, amongst many, through specialist tutoring. And so I hope the series that we've presented, this is our third one. Our teachers, it's my intention for them to be sharing tips, strategies, close to the work that they are actually doing with your students on a one-to-one. And some of these students, they really are. And today's topic, we have students, it's transitioning from primary to secondary math. So we know transition time from primary to secondary, especially math, different challenges they start to face, compounded with the fact that they have specific learning differences. Sometimes, dyslexia, dysgraphia, ADHD, math challenges. So, we were thinking this would be a good topic to have. And maths is one of the most feared subjects. I know I certainly have had maths phobia due to its complexities and abstract nature. And so a lot of our SpLD students have confidence anxiety issues surrounding math. So in this talk today, our Ms Shilpa, who's our senior specialist teacher, will be actually touching on some of the math anxieties that she herself has encountered with her students, and she will share her observations and the factors which cause the hurdles, and as well as how, a bit of strategies on how they can be overcome. Ms Albel, who's our lead educational therapist and specialist teachers, she will show some simple strategies. It's not long, we just have 15 minutes for each of our speakers on how to use the concrete representational and abstract method which we adopt at the DAS to help them transition confidently and enjoy learning. So over to you, Shilpa and Albel and everyone. I hope you enjoy the session. Later on, we will come on live and you can ask our Ms. Shilpa and Ms. Aisha on the questions that are burning. Okay, thank you. Over to you.
Okay, let's go.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. Welcome to our webinar today. I'm Shilpa and I am the Senior Specialist Tutor at DAS International. I've been teaching literacy and math to SpLD students for last 15 plus years. I love numbers and I love math. So when I'm teaching my students, my aim is to create that interest in them. Basically, I really want them to start liking math because they usually come with this apprehension about this subject. And I always try to help them to start liking it. As today we are going to speak about the transition of students from primary to secondary math. Yeah, how we can try to help them to transition confidently. Now, there are a few factors, you see. We have students who suffer from MLD or like math learning difficulties, which of course causes math anxieties. And then this all plays a big role when they are transitioning from their familiar primary school environment to secondary school. So they need to be motivated. And for that, we have to exercise certain teaching strategies which will make them feel comfortable, confident about this subject. So we are going to talk about it today. As we know, the beginning of secondary school brings along a lot of excitement and a certain degree of apprehension in every single student. They have successfully crossed that PSLE bridge and they're happy about it, proud of themselves, and they feel all grown up and they're going to enter a new environment. But they are also, the apprehension is all about making new friends, seeing new teachers. They are going to learn how their ways of teaching, new ways of teaching. Then they have heard a lot from their seniors, some senior students, or if there is an older sibling in the family, they have heard about that math, secondary math, I'm doing this topic and this is like this. And that apprehension is definitely, it has built up already. And on top of that, as they enter secondary school, there is a certain expectation from them to be more independent and more responsible towards their work. So I think all these factors kind of contribute to us a little bit of stress, anxiety. Definitely, I think this is a very normal thing for even for an adult. This can happen. So a student will feel it all the more. So how do we, what do we do? What happens actually? So what is math learning difficulty? MLD, when we talk about MLD, what is it? So you can see the skills, the deficits we notice in a student who has math learning difficulty. So it's an impaired number sense. So what is the impaired number sense? That is poor ability to learn or connect numbers and symbols, retain the mathematical facts, memorize the mathematical formulas, then apply the mathematical reasoning to a problem. So these are, see, memorization of arithmetic facts, and the last but not the least, and always which is necessary, the most required part of mathematics and numbers is accurate and fluent calculation. Now, of course, this skill is required, but if there is math learning difficulty accompanied by dyslexia sometimes, this thing, the child can suffer, they can face this hurdle like accurate calculation, fluency, or time of calculating things within a time constraint. So this is what, MLD is all about. Okay, now a lot of people have questions that does the child has to be dyslexic to have math learning difficulty, or does dyslexia cause math learning difficulty? Yes, dyslexia can be one of the causes of math learning difficulty, as dyslexia causes poor working memory, which culminates into poor retention of facts, which definitely affects the math facts. Then math involves a lot of reading. There is a lot of reading in math because there are particular mathematical terms, the words, complex words. So if a student is diagnosed with dyslexia, there is a possibility that the dyslexia will affect his math performance. It may slow him down. He or she may not be weak with numbers, but the overall effect of dyslexia may slow them down in their math performance, because it will interfere. It will interfere with their learning process, math. So what happens now? So MLD, it will hinder the processing speed when they are learning abstract concepts such as algebra, negative numbers, negative and positive. All these years they have only learnt about positive, normal numbers. Suddenly negative numbers shows up, and then which in turn will slow the whole learning process and affect their academic performance. So now what happens is, this is what I call the vicious cycle. Math learning difficulty, this is one major point on that cycle. What happens is, it leads to math anxiety. Very obvious. When the child is aware that he or she is not able to do something, or he's facing certain difficulty, the anxiety is bound to show up. What happens to that due to that math anxiety? It will affect the academic performance on tests, or so the performance will be poor, obviously, because anxiety will interfere when they are attempting the tests, or any complex word problems, or normal, even simple calculation problems. So math learning difficulty to math anxiety, it leads to poor performance. Obviously, when the performance is poor consistently, if the child is not performing, and as it is, the atmosphere is new, not necessarily they are surrounded by their friends, they want to look good in front of their new friends, this can bring down the self-esteem. So the self-esteem can go low, it can become low. Now, this low self-esteem can culminate into increased math anxiety, because the confidence will be low, that, oh, I may not be able to do this. The child will start thinking that he or she, that the self-esteem will be so low, that confidence level will be so low, that they will just never feel sure of themselves, and that is going to build up into more increased math anxiety. And what happens? The ultimate effect of all this is, sometimes children get demotivated. I think we can't blame them, because the anxiety and the poor performance, the low self-esteem, everything plays together. And then they just sometimes feel that it's okay, maybe I just can't do it. So demotivated. And that is one of the stages which I feel, as a therapist, as a math specialist tutor, I feel that stage is one of the most damaging one, because we really need to pull them out of this. They have to be motivated. And again, the demotivated student will again face the math learning difficulty. Of course, this cycle is unending, unless. So what can this MLD do? This is what I said, it can just hinder the processing speed. And then in turn, it will hinder the whole processing, learning process. So now, what we want to do is, we want to break this. We want to help to break this vicious cycle. So, because we can imagine, one can imagine that this kind of cycle, if the child is going through, it must be exhausting for an SpLD student who is already dealing with other challenges after entering the secondary school. So it's really too much for them to take. So to make this little less hassled and more productive, we need to use adequate strategies. We need to reinforce the concepts, and then we make sure that they feel confident enough, the learning is enhanced. So What is an adequate strategy? What's an adequate teaching strategy for MLD? Not one particular strategy we can point at, because it's important to focus on the learning style of the student. Every child has a different learning style. Main basic three learning styles we all know, like visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. Most of the students learn very well by visual and kinesthetic, the combination of it. So so kinesthetic is, they learn better by carrying physical activities or by touching things, actually experiencing things. So by using manipulatives, what we do at DAS, we use the teaching strategies, kinesthetic, visual, to make the student feel connected to the topic, connected to the whatever that abstract, not abstract, but we want them to connect to the topic. In school, in a school situation, probably a dyslexic student or an MLD student will have lots of questions crowding his mind already. But he has not much time. He doesn't have much of opportunity to voice them out because he's in a group situation. So what we do here, so when in DAS, we follow certain strategies. We use manipulatives, which they see, they touch, they experiment, and they come to a conclusion, like they understand what they are trying to learn. So it makes the whole process easier. Reinforcement is, we give them repetitive work. We make sure that repetition takes place. You can't just teach them one topic and move forward, especially when it's new. So that anyway we follow for every level. So in secondary level, it becomes all the more important because totally new topic. As I said, a lot of other factors are affecting. So the strategy and the reinforcement of the concept becomes very, very important, and that enhances the learning. So what happens is, when we talk about strategies, the methods we use, the OG principle, OG approach. OG approach is language based, of course, and it's simultaneously multisensory. It's structured sequential, which is the most important part when we are learning math. We have to break it into chunks and we have to make it structured. You have to teach them how sequential, even in a simple algebraic equation, you have to show them that sequence. And OG is emotionally sound. We understand the learner's ability, his learning style, so we take into consideration everything. Another method we use is CRA, which is concrete manipulatives to pictorial representation, and the last stage is abstract symbols. So we use concrete manipulatives to show the student what exactly we are trying to teach him, what he's confused about, so he can see it with his own eyes, he can touch and experience it and understand. So when it comes to like algebra tiles, we use algebra tiles or negative numbers, discs, and we show them how they can do the operation. How does it work? So, and then once it is done, they do the pictorial representation on the paper, because the writing is important. They will not be allowed to do that in the exam, right? They can't be, nobody is going to give them concrete manipulative. So they have to learn that they have to move from concrete to pictorial, and then they move to abstract. And they do that, they understand that. So there will be a stage when they may not have much time to, in exam, they even may not have much time to do pictorial representation, but they have to start learning, they have to train their brain to straight away go to abstract symbols or abstract formula. So that's how we train them. We take them through this process. Another thing is this Polya's theory. This was a Hungarian mathematician, Polya. He developed a method, a 4-stage method, so to solve. So it's understand the problem, devise a plan, carry out that plan, and then check and extend. So when we do understand the problem, we sometimes we give them guiding questions, and we give them a choice, or we tell them that they can use maybe more than one method, and then they can check which method is comfortable for them. Then you carry out that plan and then you check and work backwards. So Pollard's problem solving strategy works wonderfully with, I think, most of the kids, and with our SpLD students, the children with math learning difficulty, it definitely works because we take them through stages and it really helps them a lot. So these are the strategies we use. And of course, when we do online lessons, we do a lot of assistive technology, because online sometimes we are not able to use the concrete manipulatives, but we have been very successful. It has been a pleasant surprise to all of us that our students have learned very, very well online. Even a subject like math, I've been doing with students all the way up to N level, O levels, and they are doing fine. I think probably they are comfortable at doing it from home. They're less tired. And I'm using, like, or other teachers also like me, we all are using assistive technology. And sometimes we show them actual things even online, like on screen. So it helps them. And this is the way, this motivates them more than anything. We have observed that when we go through these methods, we have seen our children, our students build their confidence. I've seen them change their mindset about math. So it's very important when they transition from math primary to secondary, whatever apprehension they go with. But if we use the right strategies, if we make them feel confident, show them that it is possible to learn, it is possible to go get over those hurdles, we will have a confident secondary school student. So my colleague Ms Aisha will show you that how we use the manipulatives to work with negative, how teach them negative integers, positive integers, and the operations which they have to learn. So over to Ms Aisha, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Shilpa. Hello, everyone. I'm Aisha, and I'm a lead educational therapist with the Dyslexia Association of Singapore. I am also a specialist tutor with DAS International. I teach maths applying the concrete to representational to abstract approach, keeping in line with Singapore's educational policy. Today, I'm going to talk about transitioning confidently from primary to secondary mathematics. The topic I have selected is about adding and subtracting positive and negative integers. At the primary level, students work with positive numbers to perform mathematical operations. However, as they enter secondary school, negative numbers are introduced to them. To ensure this task is a positive and visual learning experience for my students, I use concrete number digits and number discs to demonstrate the addition and subtraction procedures. To start, I will introduce the world of numbers to them. Whole numbers are 0, 1, 2, 3, and more. Numbers can also be called integers. Positive integers are greater than 0. Negative integers are smaller than 0. We can represent numbers on the number line so that we can understand their value better. The number line, which students are familiar with from their primary school days, will next be introduced to my students. And I will get my students to place positive and negative numbers on the number line. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the right of origin 0. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, and negative 4 to the left of origin 0. Students also need to understand that positive numbers increase in value as they go to the right, and negative numbers decrease in value as they go to the left. They also need to understand that origin 0 marks the center of the number line. It is neither positive nor negative. Now that my students understand about positive and negative numbers, I will guide them to perform addition and subtraction procedures on the number line. The rules will first be introduced. To add, move right. To subtract, move left. Let's try some math equations. Equation 1, positive 5 plus positive 2. To add positive 2 to positive 5, we move 2 spaces to the right. And the answer is 7. Equation 2, negative 8 plus negative 3. To add negative 3 to negative 8, we move 3 spaces to the left. And the answer is negative 11. Equation 3, negative 8 minus negative 3. We count on negative 3 from negative 8 by moving 3 spaces to the left, and the answer is negative 11. Equation 4, negative 8 subtract negative 3. To subtract negative 3 from negative 8, we move 3 spaces to the right, and the answer is negative 5. Equation 5, negative 4 subtract negative 7. To subtract negative 7 from negative 4, we move 7 spaces to the right, and the answer is 3. Once students are comfortable with adding and subtracting positive and negative integers on the number line, I will move on to teaching them to make zero pairs, to add and subtract positive and negative integers. So what's a zero pair? A positive 1 together with a negative 1 forms a zero pair. A zero pair can be removed to allow matched equations to be solved. This is a zero pair. Equation 6. To illustrate the equation, negative 9 plus 3, we add 3 positive number discs to 9 negative number discs. Here are the 9 negative number discs, and we add 3. With this, we have been able to make 3 zero pairs which can be removed. So, negative 9 plus 3 is equals to negative 6. Equation 7. 3 minus 4. Positive 3 subtract positive 4. Here is 3. We need to form a zero pair. Now I can subtract 4 and my answer is negative 1. Let's take a look at this equation. 3 minus negative 1 minus negative 1. Here is 3. 1, 2, 3. From this 3, I need to subtract negative 1. But I don't have a negative 1. So I'm going to introduce a zero pair. Here is my zero pair. From this zero pair, I'm going to subtract negative 1. And I have 4. Now that I have 4, I'm going to subtract another negative 1. And because I don't have another negative 1, I'm going to introduce another zero pair. From this zero pair, I'm going to subtract negative 1. And I have 5. So 3 minus negative 1 minus -1 gives me 5. To find out how well my students have mastered the concept of making zero pairs, to add and subtract positive and negative integers, I will give them sums to do and get them to demonstrate and explain to me their thought process. This slide shows a student explaining how to work out the math equation -6 plus 4 using algebra discs.
To work out the sum, -6 plus 4. So this one, right? -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then this is the 4. Then to work out this sum, need to make it to 0 pair. So this is a 0 pair. Then 2 until everything of the positive number no more. Then left -2. So answer -2.
This slide shows an application of the zero pairs concept. Some algebra discs are arranged on an A4 sheet. Students study the layout of the discs and write out the math equation. So here you can see a student drawing out the zero pairs to work out the sum 8 plus -6, and he gets the answer as 2. For worksheet practice, I will let the students draw out the zero pairs of the given sums and solve. I get students to work out sums on teacher whiteboard and explain the solution. I check their understanding and correct where necessary. These 2 slides show students working out the sums, and then after that they will explain how they have worked out their solution. To summarize, students can add and subtract positive and negative integers using a number line and making zero pairs. I try to make the content fun, interesting, colorful, with simple teaching steps, and engage my students with concrete representational to abstract activities so that learning new concepts is a build on from what they already know, and the transition from primary mathematics to secondary mathematics is a happy experience for them, and the new learning will always stay in their mind. Hopefully, you have benefited from the strategies that I have introduced, and you will use them with your own secondary students. Thank you and have a great day ahead.
Thank you, Albel and Shilpa. So, before we start the question and answer session, it's now time for you to give us some feedback, please. QR code, which I'm about to share with you, is here. For those who cannot scan the QR code right now, you can use the link that is currently sitting in the chat. Obviously, we'd love to hear your feedback on our presentations. And if you could do that for us, we'd appreciate it. Now it's time for some questions and answers. So if I can invite our presenters to join me, as well as Anna, we can have a quick discussion on transitioning from primary to secondary math. Now, I know that we have some questions today, but I know that there are parents out there who go, you know, primary math, that was easy. But now they're struggling in secondary math. How am I going to be able to help them? And it seems, and I know I face that, you know, it's out of my comfort zone. And so, you know, what advice do we give to parents about those kids that are just like, they're struggling and in secondary math, and I don't know whether I'm going to be able to support them. So, you know, can you give some advice to parents about settling down that math anxiety?
Yeah. Shall I try answering your question, Deborah?
Thank
Yes,
you.
that would be great. Thanks.
Okay.
Sorry. Have I made it too challenging?
No, the first thing is when you said primary math is easy, it's not difficult. No, I don't think so. It was equally bad for children,
Oh,
especially
okay.
local schools, you know. So they already have faced that, whatever the struggle. But yeah, like we said, secondary school is going to be a little at a different level. And as I mentioned in my talk, that expectation is slightly different. So they're expected to be more responsible, more independent when it comes to their work. And at the same time, they're facing the whole abstract lot of math. So what maybe parents can do is, you know, use whatever objects which they have at home, like simple things when trying to teach algebra. So they can just do, I have some money, and which they have done already in primary, you know, they used to draw the model like, I have some amount of money, I gave away 5 and now remaining is 7 or whatever. So parents can just use, they don't have to show what money they have, and they can use some kind of X and how to say the variable X. They can start practicing with their children. Okay, I gave X dollars of money away. So now I am left with this much. So how I am going to represent the equation? Very simple level. I know every parent is not comfortable with math. We cannot expect parents to sit there and teach their children, you know. So, I mean, that's asking too much from after a long day of work. But very simple things they can connect. And as we all know, there are many topics in secondary which are connected to primary topics. I mean, math is like that, right? It never leaves your back. Every topic will show up at some point in time. So they can revisit if they feel that the child is struggling with certain topics. They can find out what was the weakness, reconnect with the topic which they have previously learned, and then show them that this is how, you know, it's going to work. It can be fractions, it can be factors and multiples. So factors they learned like just factorizing normal numbers, but as soon as they enter secondary, the word comes prime factorization. Okay, so you have to teach the child that it's okay. Prime means you have to just come down to that prime, that one, number one. And it's on, it doesn't remain all that difficult, you know. And most importantly, I think we have to be extremely patient with them. We can't expect them to suddenly like know everything. No, they're already
Yeah.
facing multiple challenges. Yeah. So that's what
And
my
yeah, thank you, Shilpa, because Albel, when I saw your presentation today, I went, what? You teach negative pairs? Like,
Yes,
that was
me
something
too.
new to me. And I think a lot of parents are feeling like, this is not how I learnt math, you know? So, so these strategies obviously are working with your students, but it's very unfamiliar to us. How do the students take to these methods of learning?
Actually, it's quite easy because when we teach them and we show them exactly how to work out using the zero pairs, I think they understand and they follow through. As long as we show them the exact method of how to do, they are paying attention, they make the zero pairs, and then they're able to work out the sums. I think it's quite simple, and with the concrete manipulatives that each child is using, they use that to work out the sums. But to start out, they need to understand what a zero pair is and what their function is. So it's actually putting a positive, let's say it's a positive 1, we put it together with a negative 1 and we get a zero pair. So the idea is to remove the zero pair when based on the digits in the sum so that the sum can be solved. And I think the children do understand when we show it to them, they understand the meaning and they are able to work through. And it is also in their school books. So when it is in their textbook and we explain to them, the two meanings relate with each other and they are able to solve. So it's actually quite an easy experience for them. It's not a problem at all.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
I just thought that's something new for me. I hadn't seen it before, but there you go. I don't have young children right now. Yeah.
Another issue where they have to flip numbers too. You can flip a number digit. So actually a positive one number disk has a negative one behind it. But for today's presentation, I'm keeping it simple, so I'm not included that in. It's only making zero pairs to solve sums.
Oh, okay. All right.
So
Great.
interesting. I have a question
Quite
here.
easily.
Yeah, I have a question here. What are some of the difficulties faced by SpLD learners, students with learning differences in learning abstract concepts? You know,
You
such
mean
as
something
algebra,
like-
because our students have difficulty in, even reversals and things like that. So how does that impact algebra, for example?
I see. Okay, I think algebra concept is actually, it can be quite easily and simply taught to the students, because I think they need to understand that the letter actually represents, they are using a letter to represent the number, and the number is unknown. And we can actually use a manipulative to represent that number, or we can use a letter X in the algebra disk. For example, I'll make an example. John has X number, or John buys a shirt for X dollars. His friend buys, let's say, a bag for three times more than that. So how much do they spend? So it will be actually that X plus the $3 more, and that's the amount that his friend spends. So it's X plus $3. So that would be his answer, and they cannot add because X is a letter and $3 is a number. So they just need to write down X plus $3, and it solves the sum. So John buys his shirt for X plus $3. So it's just a letter there, either X, or you can put as a manipulative, you can put any manipulative there. So that would be his solution.
Okay, thank you, Albel. I have a question.
Bar model
Sorry.
to represent that.
Shilpa, you have something to say? Sorry.
Yeah, it's because you asked about the difficulties which they face, right? And which really becomes a hurdle when they're learning this math. Like just now Albel was saying that we have to write those long algebraic equations, and when there are multiple variables, the letters, now it becomes a combination of letter and numbers. That's where we have noticed that children, if they're suffering with dyslexia, they tend to get confused when reading between P and Q, M and N. Then I've always seen a couple of these kind of letters, So what we as we can't stop the school from giving them those equations, but when we are preparing them, we try to give them different letters which they are not confused while reading, because that's the first line. That's where the child can get put off. So this is one of the simple strategy even parents can follow. That's what I want to say. When they notice that if there is a dyslexia, mostly because reading is so important in math, and color coding, which I always say, which we all have experienced, that students do respond to that well. So using different colors, then there is another method to solve equations which we call rainbow method. You have to just insist that they use those methods so that the confidence sets in.
So I have a question here from one of our participants. If the students, because we are talking a lot about concrete representation and abstract, one of the questions being asked is, if the students rely on manipulatives to help them solve math problems, would this method not slow them down during exams? They've been practicing with manipulatives. So how do you wean them off? And
yes, it will. That is why I mentioned that during my talk, that during exam, nobody is going to give them manipulatives. So we can't make them dependent on them for too long. So slowly we move them from manipulatives. So that's the advantage of, like in DAS, when we do the sessions, we have time to, a certain time we can spend on manipulatives. Then we teach them to move to pictorial, and we have to make them aware that they have to move to abstract level. There is no way out. And we have to start building that confidence in them, that there is no need to get scared. We have already, you have understood. So probably repetition of a concept. Maybe beginning we can do, like we do lesson plans, right? So we can focus on that. So initially we can do manipulatives, teach them move to move to pictorial, and then we bring them to complete abstract. We have to start getting training their brain rather to that, and training them. So yes, that's a perfect question. Yes.
I have one more burning question, which was asked from the beginning, and I think I'd like the final question. And if we can't answer all your questions, we will email you individually. So the last question is, if the student got a D for the PSLE exam, it means there's a lot of gaps in the conceptual understanding, and the child is immediately behind when they go into secondary math, right? When they get the D. So what can, as a teacher, advise to a parent? And if this child can't do simple calculations, then exams are going to be a big challenge. So how can we support the child better when during exams? I think there's two questions here actually.
Yeah, I'll answer that question. Okay. When the child scores D in his PSLE, it's not that he's behind in maths. No. I think the D is maybe just a little bit below the 50% pass mark. So he's actually there. And
very encouraging words.
It is true, yeah. And actually it's not a D, it's not considered a fail at all. But not to worry about that. When he enters secondary school with a D in his maths, he will either be doing normal academic mathematics, or he would be doing normal technical maths. But whatever the case, they start off in secondary school, they start off with interesting topics. Like, I think the first topic is about, if it's a normal academic class, it will be on prime numbers and all that. So the whole topic is so interesting. They use calculators, and their whole approach towards mathematics is different, because the topic is about prime numbers, and as long as the students understand that prime numbers have got only two factors, which is they themselves and 1. So with this information, they start off by finding what are the prime factors within 100, and they're able to find it's like 2, 3, 5, 7, and all that. So the whole topic, they are able to use a calculator, and they are on task, and they find the topic interesting. And after that, they move on to the next topic, which is also a build on, which is on finding highest common factor, lowest common factor, so that they recap their knowledge of doing factors and multiples at primary 4 level, and they are able to work on. And so they don't have to worry about the D that they have scored at the PSLE, because interesting content is being presented to them. And it's fun for them, and as long as they follow the content and that the teacher is teaching, and they practice their sums at home and apply the procedures, they are able to work out. And there are many students who have, with a D, who have entered secondary school, who are doing perfectly fine. They are scoring A's. In fact, in term 1, I have got my Sec 1 NT class. They are all scoring A's at the end of their first term. And these students are the ones who actually failed, not a D, but they actually failed at PSLE. And here they are with the new type of concepts and topics that are presented to them at term 1 in secondary school, they are actually performing A's because their whole, as they approach secondary maths, they find the topics interesting, and I guess they are in love with the topics. And they,
okay.
Nice.
yeah, and they try to do their best there. They want to get out of the fail feeling and, of doing well. And
Thank you.
as
Yeah,
long
thank you,
as
I
they
think-
Belle. The
I
passion
think
is
our
with the
Belle
teacher.
I think our Belle as a teacher has given them a lot
Yes.
of confidence in math.
Confidence. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
One
the
last.
most important thing.
That's
Yeah.
so true. Final word from maybe Shilpa before we
Shilpa,
close.
Do you have
Shilpa.
how are your Sec 1 students going?
Yeah.
I while Albert was saying about these things, I remember 2 of my students, same thing, PSLE, they kind of struggled and got okay grades, about D or whatever. But secondary 1, both of them have won some award. I don't know what is it, that some school award, like for math. And it was like, because what she said is right, because they're allowed to use calculator and the topics are different, more of calculation is there. Less word problems, definitely, because I think the word problems is the thing which scares them. And now we are talking about MOE students, but MOE school students, but we also have had international school students. I would just like to mention this one, Anna Noza. They have already moved to New Zealand, but she was here just for 8 months. She was with us at DAS, and when they came from Hong Kong. And we could see that there was a huge struggle with math, especially that her school refused to grade her. First test, they said, we will not grade her. She's not even at that level, 9th grader, okay? And then she did some intensive, sometimes once a week. She was in soccer team and whatnot, there are so many activities going on, but the girl
kids
used
are
to
busy.
come carrying all her soccer things. She would come to our DAS class, and I was so proud of her that the next test was maybe after 2 months, and she scored 67% on that. That was quite a jump, from being ungraded to that. And I won't take the full credit, of course not. It's the child. She really put a mind in it, I was like,
The mindset.
she used to do 2 hours of session, and every time when we would finish the session, she would say, are you sure we are done with 2 hours? Do you think we can have 15 minutes more? I said, no, my dear, because I have next student coming in. But you know what I'm trying to say here is, I was very happy that somewhere that interest was created. And I think I always aim for that. More than fear, try to enjoy math, start enjoying that, it's not that bad a subject. So I think this is just one of the students I'm mentioning. We have had a lot of DAs. I think we are doing quite a good job with students.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Thank you
Well,
so
that's
much.
really wonderful to hear, right?
Yeah.
That's
We
a
feel
lovely story.
better.
Thank you.
Relieved.
Oh, no, we are actually. I have had fantastic feedbacks from parents who have moved countries, and I have had parents literally sitting, tears down the road, down their eyes, that, oh my God, like, she was not doing well, but now she has done that. I think, we should be proud of ourselves somewhere.
Oh, it's
Thank you.
good. Wonderful. Well,
Thank you.
we've come to the end of our sharing today, and I'm sure that there'll be plenty of questions that we can answer. So please leave them with us, or you can ask Shilpa or Albel directly. I'm sure that they would love to answer any of your questions. You can contact them at DAS International. But I hope you've had a chance to do the feedback. If you haven't, take a chance now. We'd love to hear from you. And I just would like to, so the QR code's there ready for you to take a snap if you want. What I'd like to talk about now is that this is as Anna said, it was our 10th anniversary, and our next webinar is something that you shouldn't miss. This is 6 of our specialist teachers sharing about their experiences of supporting students who learn differently. Now, this is going to be definitely an engaging conversation.
Very nice.
Not one that you should miss. So we look forward to seeing you next month in our anniversary month. The year 10 years ago, Anna and I started DAS International, didn't we, Anna?
We did.
And then so, we'd really love for you to be with us and listen to this conversation. It'll be very exciting. So Anna, you
Yeah.
would like to have a few words to say at the end?
Oh no, just to really thank everyone for their lunch time. I know it's your lunch
Yes.
hour, and for spending the time with us this hour, really in listening to our teachers, and I'm sure you've learned some gold nuggets from Aisha and from Shilpa today. So we look
Yeah.
forward to seeing everyone again. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much for joining us, and register for next month. We'd love to see you back again.